Hi, and welcome to episode number 5 of my podcast, Real Impact. Today, I have on my friend Max DeLeon from California. For those of you that don't know Max, he's 22 years old and multifamily underwriter and market analysis uh, person, part of the $1 million upside team as well. So, with that, let's get started. Hey, Max.
Alrighty. Hey, thank you for having me, first off. And thank you for having me. Glad to be
Yeah,
here.
I'm excited for this one. Thank you for being on here. So first of all, would you like to take just a minute or so to tell the audience about you and guess what your life's been like or your background and how you got to where you are now?
hmm Yeah. So I guess just for time's sake, I'll keep this a little bit short. So I'll start my journey starting college on, right? So before college, I wanted to get into real estate. So specifically multifamily, and I wanted to go into big apartment complexes. And some part of me wanted me to just not do it because it was too big. It was too much of too much of a challenge, too much of uh, a big goal, Um, but really, as I went through college, because I ultimately dropped doing that, I went back to college and got my degree, and then 4 years later, it's like I dialed back, I got a job, and then now I'm just like stuck. I don't enjoy being in a 9 to 5 environment. I just don't enjoy working alone. I like to work with all my friends and all that. So really, I quit my job and got into real estate. So my first breaking point was getting into the sub two mentorship because I knew that once I put my money where my mouth is, that I would actually take action. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So that was really the big turning point and big inflection point in my life is taking that step. And I remember being on the phone with the director of enrollment, or I don't know what the actual title is, but I remember getting off the phone with him. My heart was beating, and I thought from then on my life would be amazing and everything would be set for me. And that was very not true. I started getting into all the content, just taking a look at everything and just trying to find my way, right? And one of the um, another big inflection point was me figuring out that it wasn't all set out in stone for me. I wasn't going to get rich, just living an easy life. And just because I put like $10,000 down on this mentorship, that I wouldn't be a real estate expert and all that stuff. So try to figure out the easy way out. Always trying to figure out the easy way out. But now that I'm here in this space, I'm starting to break down all these frameworks and constructs that I had previously, right? So um, yeah. So once I got into after that phase, right, I started trying to network because I knew that I had a big problem in communication and speaking with others and just connecting, because ultimately I didn't have that part of my life. I was a very shy guy, very introverted throughout high school and middle school. I'd always just kind of sit in the corner, sit in the back in the shadow, just doing nothing, um, other than being on my phone and just listening to music. But yeah, that was me. And then once I started connecting and getting into the rooms with other people who had big goals and who were doing big things, then my life just changed, right? Because once you see that, it shifts the trajectory of your life, right? So you start to see uh, your life in a different light, and how you could. It starts to break down all these limiting beliefs on what you can and what you can't do, and that's what it really helped me, right? So again, just joining all the Zooms that my team hosted and other teams I've been hosting has been a game changer, really, to shift my mindset in the direction I wanted it to be. So for me, 4 years ago, from feeling like I'm not going to be able to get into multifamily real estate, it's going to take me 10 years, 15 years, 20 years to get into multifamily. But really, all I needed to have was that mindset shift, that tiny mindset shift, was to have that little push as to I can do it, you know. So get into the rooms with people who are doing big things, really big things, and um, your life will change. It really will, and I truly mean that, because it's been such a life changer for me, and my impact on other people um, will be very very big because of that. You know, so that's kind of where I'm at today. And yeah, I really enjoy what I'm doing.
That's awesome. There's a lot to unpack there. I'd like to go back to, so for me, I don't know if you know this about me, but I didn't go to high school or college. So I'm just curious, if you had to do it over, would you do all that, like go to get all the education? Did you feel like it was still valuable, or would you do anything different if you had to do it over?
You know, I think that there's always great things to unpack from the education aspect, but I truly believe that you really want to want it. You know, like you really want to have that sophisticated knowledge. Then by all means, go to college, go get that specialized degree. But for me, I didn't have any practical use for my degree other than uh, pushing my life into a trajectory that I didn't want. You know. And it was really just a tool for me to be used to get a job. So it really depends on what your situation is and what you ultimately want. Because if you know that you want to be like a business owner, entrepreneur, then really, what's the point? You know, because um, being an entrepreneur is more of getting that hands-on experience and learning through failure. So, and you really don't get that through college because it's more of like a theory education more of system. So those are kind of my takes on that.
Hmm. Yeah, I definitely agree with that. So not going to high school for me, I do think it would have helped me in a lot of ways. Um, and I never really got into like the calculus and all that.
Mhm.
Math is something that I do like numbers, but math isn't really, I guess, my strong suit per se.
Yeah.
I think definitely it would have helped me to go through high school and learn more of that, the in depth parts of that. But yeah, I do agree with that. There are definitely cases where college and the education does make sense for people. It's, yeah, like you said, it just kind of depends on, I guess, what your goals are and where you want to go in life.
Yeah.
So, but the one thing you mentioned, you're part of Sub Two.
Mhm.
Having that, it seems like for me, it works the same way. Like just having that skin in the game, having money invested. It feels like for me, that kind of propels me to actually take some action instead of just. I guess I've been consuming free content on YouTube, and I've learned a lot that way. But because it seems like because it's free, it doesn't really force me to actually do something with it. Whereas something that I paid for, it's just like a mental thing where I feel like I should try to take action to actually make that money back. It's probably not the right mindset, but I guess that's just kind of human nature or natural for me. So I definitely think it's important to have some kind of, like you said, skin in the game.
Mhm.
You had mentioned, so I'm very similar. Like I'm still like shy and introverted, but I'm nowhere near where I used to be. Where even like 6 months ago, I was kind of terrified of getting on camera, and like I remember my first Zoom was probably in February or March of this year, and I didn't even turn my camera on. I was just kind of lurking in the background, and so but I love what you're starting to. I see you're starting to do some Instagram, like some reels
Yeah.
and stuff, and I think that's great. Just pushing yourself to do that, even though it might be uncomfortable. But I think you've got a lot of value, and people will like what you have to say.
Yeah.
So I really like that and enjoy watching your content.
I
So
appreciate that.
yeah, absolutely.
And the big reason why I wanted to start that and do that was to keep myself accountable, right? So my big mission is to spread positivity through entrepreneurship and at the same time push like personal development and all that stuff going forward because I feel like as a business owner you kind of have a negative connotation surrounding that title, you know what I mean? Because a lot of people are like, oh, the rich and wealthy are complete assholes, but once you kind of get into the game and you see all the people that you're surrounded with, it's like these people provide you with so much value and so much support. It's very nauseating, you know, for the lack of a better term. But it's great, really. And another small purpose of my social media was to push myself to get better communication skills, right? Because, like you said before, you're still that shy, introverted um, type, right?
mhm,
So, and I definitely felt the same way, right? So 9 months ago, I was the same way. I didn't want to be on camera. I didn't want to show myself. I didn't want to speak with other people. And now that I'm constantly interacting and communicating, I'm getting better at it, but I'm still not the greatest, you know. So
mhm,
putting yourself in those rooms where you're actively working on those skills and staying consistent will really propel you forward very in a trajectory that you would want for sure.
mhm. Yeah, I think wanting to be an entrepreneur now, like these days, it's kind of inevitable. You have to kind of have to be out there. It seems like,
Mhm.
and that's kind of the same reason for me. I just realized that I do have to push myself to at least be comfortable on camera and interacting with other people because that's what it comes down to is especially real estate is like relationships. I feel like it comes down to numbers and relationships basically. So um,
Yeah.
you'd also mentioned being in the right rooms. That's something that I've it's kind of blown my mind actually. Like you see all these successful people, and I used to think they're kind of like inaccessible, and like how do I actually learn from them? But it's been surprising to me to see how much, especially in real estate, how much people are willing to share.
Yeah.
And like as far as I've got so many different people that give me just free information and just want to help out, help me get started. And I feel like they don't like maybe they don't want anything in return except for like actually seeing me do what they say, like actually take
Mhm.
action on what they tell me to
Yeah.
share with me. And that's been very eye opening. Just for example, something that was a big like mindset shift for me was when uh, the MDU team had a meetup in Dallas. So I flew to Dallas, and I was kind of expecting it to be like this big event where I wouldn't even get to talk to the the people that were putting on the event. And turns out I got to talk to them and really got to know them, and they invited me to their house, and so it
Mhm.
was just a great blessing for me to be able to that kind of changed my mindset on a lot of things. As they've been, I guess they're also kind of newer to the space, but they've gathered a lot of experience just in a short amount of time,
Right.
and I'm very grateful for everything they've done for me so far, and just the education side of things, and also there's the mindset shift I've gotten from seeming like it's impossible, like especially multifamily is like impossible, this big
Mhm.
unreachable goal, to now where I feel like it's actually attainable. And it comes down to making the right connections and being part of a team, because it takes a team to do that. Which leads me to the next thing. Um, I think you're a part of their team now. Is that right?
Yeah.
You're underwriting and also doing market analysis now, which is great that you were able to kind of create that opportunity by being in the right places. And I guess, when did you start underwriting? Is that when did you kind of decide that's what your strong suit is?
I really didn't decide that for myself, you know?
Hmm.
In the beginning, I didn't wanna be on camera and I didn't want to make calls, right? So those are like the two things that I just didn't like, because I naturally gravitated towards underwriting, because I have a very heavy background in math and data and stuff like that. So a huge part of my skill set back then was uh, data and underwriting and numbers and stuff like that. So really, it's how can you provide value, right? With your skill set right now, how can you provide value to other people, right? And that's at that time, that's what I had, right? So I was doing underwriting, market analysis, I was doing a whole bunch of other stuff, but mainly just heavy data stuff, heavy number stuff, and really working in the spreadsheets and in that stuff. So but now that I've kind of evolved, I do want to branch out into building my personal brand and improving my communication and speaking skills, because, like you said, I believe it's a necessity, being a business owner and being an entrepreneur, because getting your message out there is very difficult, but I think it's very easy to do when you have very, very strong communication skills, very strong public speaking skills. Um, So that's where I'm kind of shifting towards, is focusing on those communication skills and the speaking skills. So yeah, just just to kind of tie everything back together. Lead with value, right? So with your current skill set, how can you lead with value? And then find the right proxy, find the right conduit to provide that value to, right? So yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, and you're doing all that. I really just admire that, especially from you, because I can kind of relate to you, like being introverted and shy. Just that you're taking that leap and putting yourself out there. I do really admire that. And I was going to ask you, what kind of advice you would have for someone younger and newer that is trying to get into the game. But I think you kind of, um, that was good advice there. Just lead
Mm,
with value. I think that's probably the best advice you could give someone
yeah.
newer starting out. Just figure out where you can provide value and, to someone else, a team, or someone more experienced. So I think that's great advice.
Yeah.
Um, Are you? I don't know if you. I'm guessing you read books. Um,
I used to a lot, but
mhm.
not too much anymore. Um, I think I'm gonna start ramping up though, because I do enjoy personal development books, leadership
Mhm.
books, things of that sort. So I do want to go heavy on those, because I think it's going to be a game changer in my career as an entrepreneur. Um, but other than that, I haven't been reading too much. I just read. I have it right here on my desk actually. It's I don't have the cover on it because it's a hardback, but it's The Motive by Patrick Lencioni. It's a great book about leadership and kind of breaking down the frameworks of what is your meaning as a leader, and what are your ultimate goals, because the story is really about two leaders, right? One is leading a better business, um, and one is leading a worse business. And the one that's leading the better business, his the way he sees things and his perspective on being a leader is pushing people in the right directions, right? And then the other leader who's leading the worst business only wants to do the things that he enjoys doing, right? So marketing and sales. But ultimately, being a leader is getting people in your seats or the seats in your business to the right destination, right? So that's a really great message for any leaders out there because I think you can really get wrapped up in status and money and all that stuff and greed, but ultimately it's that act of selflessness of pushing people in the right direction that is what ultimately makes you a leader.
Hmm. Yeah, thank you for that recommendation. I haven't read that book yet, so it's definitely on my list now.
Yeah.
So,
Great book.
um, one thing I'm curious about, and something I'm kind of passionate about as well, is the Clifton strength analysis.
Mhm.
Have you? I was just curious. Have you done that all yet? At all yet?
Yeah, hold on. I don't know what I have on the top of my head, but I know that I'm very the colors. The
Hmm.
only thing I really took from that is the colors that I had. So, my colors are heavy in purple and green, and I'm not too sure what the significance are or the symbolism is there, but I know it's kind of like an executor, right? So
Hmm.
pushing the needle, doing the work that needs to be done and stuff like that. And again, I could be wrong on that because
Hmm.
I didn't really look into it that much.
Yeah. Well, that's. I expected you to have a lot of green. It's
Mhm.
kind of because I do have green, a lot of green, and I think blue. Those are my two top colors. But yeah, just curious. It's really interesting. It seems to be pretty accurate from what I've seen.
Mhm.
So I'm just always curious to see what other people have found in their uh,
Yeah.
analysis. So.
Yeah, it's definitely very cool to see like what your strengths are and then um how you could improve from there, right?
Mhm.
Because I think that it's a good baseline to have that, but at the same time, it will change, you know? Especially being in entrepreneurship, it changes as you go.
Mhm.
And while I may not be like a leader right now, then I could be like a leader 5 years later and all of my colors have shifted over, you know? So
Mhm.
I would highly urge you to take the test 5 years from now and
Mhm.
see how different your results are.
Yeah, I think you definitely have leadership qualities, and um, it's see, what was I gonna say? I had something just on the tip of my tongue I was gonna say, but about that. But yeah, I think okay, that's what it was. I was gonna say, I feel like since I've taken the test, I feel like I kinda know what to look for in partners now, like,
Mhm.
especially for the time being, because I understand that things will definitely change over time, and as entrepreneurs, we're always trying to become a better version of ourselves,
Yeah.
and so hopefully we can improve in those some of those areas. But I feel like it has helped me to kind of figure out what I need in a partner right now, someone that kind of has leads in different areas that I don't maybe. So
Mhm.
yeah,
Yeah,
it's great for
and
me.
that's a great thing about partnerships, right? Is that as you guys work together and you guys kind of fill those roles with each other, right? So you mesh together. And honestly, once you start taking on the roles that the other person ultimately isn't good at or doesn't want to do, it's like a game changer. But then one thing that I think gets overlooked very often is where do you see yourself or what are your goals, what are your values, and what are your core principles, right? Because once you get into a partnership, it's very difficult to get out of, especially when, or I guess kind of like the opposite of that is partnerships should be where both of you guys are working towards the same goal and not on a very surface level. you guys need to go super deep. So, like, what is your why? And then keep asking yourself, what is your why? Because once you get to that bottom why, and it's like you're super, super deep down, and like, why is it that you want to do this? It becomes super clear on how you carry yourself and how you operate as an entrepreneur. Because I found that in some partnerships, it's that why, that deep down why isn't connected, right? And then that dynamic of taking on these roles and taking on these roles, it starts to shift because you find that you start blaming each other for what you're doing, and then ultimately the partnership breaks. So when you're looking for partnerships, make sure that you're aligning on your values, your core principles, how you guys operate, and most importantly, what is your why?
I
So
think that's great advice. That's something I'm kind of scared of, like actually becoming a part of a partnership because I've heard like the horror stories. I get maybe not horror stories, but just bad experiences people have had with partners that didn't align with their goals
mhm,
and their values. So I think it's definitely very important. One of the most important things is forming the right partnerships, and that's kind of
yeah,
something I'm. That's one of the limiting beliefs I still have is actually because I haven't really formed a partnership with anyone yet, and I've always been kind of independent, tried to do things myself. But now I realize that in real estate, especially, I will have to, in order to scale where I want to go, I definitely will have to form the right partnerships, and it's something that kind of scares me, honestly. So
yeah.
it's definitely something I have to work on. And
Mhm.
but
Yeah,
yeah,
and
that's
I
great.
don't want that, message to deter you of getting into a partnership. I just wanna make sure that you're in the right partnership, right?
Mhm,
So, again, you always want to shop around and not just go with the next best person, you know?
mhm,
So, again, make sure you're vetting your partners and really getting the right person in place. Because once you get that synergy going, it's you guys will take off 100%.
mhm. I think we're over time. I told you we're getting up on 30 minutes here, but just one last question. What is one like piece of advice you could share for someone, especially wanting to start investing in multifamily, like apartment buildings, bigger assets? What is, I guess, one piece of advice for someone, which you touched on it earlier, but um, for someone to get to to get started, basically.
Yeah. Um, I'm gonna kind of dial back a little bit and say that getting into entrepreneurship is again a very long journey. It's not something that takes a year, 2 years, 3 years, and then you're rich. While it may happen, it's unrealistic for most. So, um, my my message for anyone is to be kind, spread positivity, and lead with value. Those are probably my 3 most important things that I operate with in my career because it's been such a big driver in my, success that I want others to partake in that. So, spread positivity, um, be kind, and I feel like I just butchered that, but it's all the same stuff, right? So,
Mhm.
spread positivity, be kind, and, lead with value.
Yeah.
So,
I love that. Well, hey, appreciate you being on, Max, and
yeah, thanks for
thank
having
you
me.
for sharing all the knowledge, and thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you on the next one.
Yeah.